Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Carla Sanchez. I'm the Senior Specialist for Behavior Change and Community Health with Save the Children on the Ready Initiative. And today I'll be talking to you about community engagement, specifically about a step-by-step document for engaging communities during COVID-19. And I'll be here at the bottom of your screen talking to you about this process. So firstly, this step-by-step process is based on Save the Children's How to Mobilize Communities for Health and Social Change Community Action Cycle. And you can see to the right the graphic there. But you'll see that it has 7 phases. And within those 7 phases, we have about 72 steps total. And what we've done is we've taken these 72 steps in 7 phases and put them into 6 steps and 14 sub-steps for the emergency response for COVID. And we've tried to maintain important elements of the original using key actions for an emergency response. And this document could be used according to the needs and context of your programs or countries. It could complement your existing work. For example, if you have carried out some community engagement, but find that this could supplement or some of the tools could supplement of your work, that's possible. And if you have not done any community engagement, then you can use the whole protocol as well. So it's up to you and what the needs are of the country and the program. This could be used for COVID-19 itself, for any new COVID-19 response programming, or if you're doing any community engagement around other areas, for example, child protection or WASH, you could use this for the COVID-19 context. And this, as much as we don't want to encourage or emphasize anything face-to-face, we focus on remote and two-way communication, but sometimes face-to-face meetings are inevitable, and we do include tools and resources and guidance as well for safe community meetings. So I'm going to take you quickly over to look at the document. We have the welcome, who are the actors, and I'll talk about them a little bit more. We have key considerations. And then we also have the actual table itself, which includes the step, the purpose, the hows, and this is what we're calling the sub-steps. We have communication options, and then for each of these sub-steps, we have specific tools, resources, and guidances to help you carry this step out. So I just want to quickly talk about who the actors are. So the program team are those working with the community through provincial or municipal leaders to support implementing community engagement. These might be Save the Children, country office, or field office, for example. Then we have your mobilizing officials, and those would be your provincial and or municipal and or district officials who during traditional community engagement work closely with your community partners to drive community engagement. And we hope that it's the same here as well. They will be driving, the program team drives the first half, the initial taking it off the ground. The mobilizing officials work directly with the community partners during the middle, and then the community partners drive the actual implementation of community engagement. And so if mobilizing officials during an emergency might not be as able to drive the middle part of the process, but whatever support you can get from them would be very helpful and really important to provide ownership and sustainability of community engagement. We have our community partners, and those are existing community groups or platforms, and I'll use community groups and partners interchangeably throughout, but they are already carrying out community engagement, preferably for COVID-19 with communities. So these could be your community health workers or your care groups or any health, water, development, or other community committees. And whenever possible, it's important to include membership or support from key traditional trusted formal leaders and those that represent marginalized groups or those that represent people living in vulnerable situations. And lastly, number 4 here, we have our broader community. I'm going to go ahead and go back now to the actual presentation. And so these are the 6 steps, and I won't go into them here because I'll talk about each one of these. But step 1 is to obtain buy-in and support from provincial, municipal, and district officials. And this is important, meaning that you will be meeting with them, talking about the community engagement process, this step-by-step process, for example, what that looks like, what their role would be, what your role would be, and what the community's role would be. They would also help to create links to the community leaders to kind of streamline the process of reaching out to them. And they would also help to reach out to the community leaders themselves to provide that initial contact and let them know that you'll be reaching out to them as well. So the step 1.1 would be to create a list of municipal district officials with which to meet and that plan and schedule. And then step 2 would be to meet with them. And who would be doing this? This would be the program team. And here's just a snapshots of some tools. This is a phone tree. And this is a sample meeting plan for community leaders and officials. So you might have the district level officials first, then your traditional authorities, then orientation meeting for sub-traditional authorities, and then the community themselves. So step 2 would be to gather and review data about the community for decision making. And so here is where you're collecting any existing data about the communities. So step 2.1 would be collecting data, existing data from partners, such as RCCE partners, NGOs, the Ministry of Health. And then step 2.2 would be you collecting any data and reviewing data, such as what are the trusted sources of information and communication channels that communities use. And then this would again be who would be the program team, so that would be you. And here are some examples. We have a questionnaire here. And again, this is just a snapshot. The full document is linked into the source protocol. And then step 3, so this would be where we orient the community leaders and existing community groups to help engage communities remotely. So now that we have commitment and support by the district officials, for example, now we need the support and buy-in from the community leaders and from the existing groups. These will be the folks that will be carrying out community engagement and implementing activities with the communities themselves. So firstly, you would orient community leaders, get their buy-in and support, explain to them, similar to what you did with your mobilizing officials, what the process of community engagement looks like, what their responsibility is, what your role would be, and what the community's role would be. It would also help to connect you to step 2.2, existing community groups or partners who are already carrying out community engagement. You would also reach out to them, orient them, explain the process with them, and let them know what their responsibilities are, what yours are, and what the mobilizing officials are. And this is done by the program team. And even though the program team will be doing this, your mobilizing officials will have already communicated with them as well. And here's an example tool. This is a document that has the planning for, talking points, and agenda when meeting with community leaders. Step 4, so now is where we actually meet and orient the communities themselves. So you're orienting them on the remote community engagement process and as well providing them with COVID-19 basic information. And first step would be 4.1 would be to plan to orient the broader community. And this is an important step because you will probably have to hold a series of meetings with different community groups, depending on different groups' availability, different groups' sources and access and types of communication channels that they use, and the scope and scale and size of the communities with which you'll be meeting. And the purpose of these meetings is to provide them with an overview of the community engagement process, what that means, what this process looks like to them, what their role will be in this, and the time frame as well. So the planning for this, after this happens, you would then actually hold a series of broader community orientation meetings where you're providing different community groups with this information. And this could be done, again, depending on who the audience would be, using different communication formats. For example, if you're meeting with elderly, you might need to do a face-to-face meeting. If you're meeting with women, you might need to do it during the day using community radio. And if you're meeting with youth, you might be able to do this using Facebook Live in the evenings. So you'll have to cater according to your different audiences. And who? This would be the mobilizing officials with community partners. And even though they're the ones who are leading this, the partners, such as Save the Children, would still be behind the scenes to provide any support as needed. And here's an example. We have a sample community orientation meeting at the village level with preparations, your participants, and the sample meeting process. But then to the right here, we have 3 different considerations for how you would carry that out if you had to carry it out by phone, by video, or using radio. And most of our tools have a breakdown of how you would carry out that specific activity around phone, video, or radio. So step 5 is our heaviest of the steps, and this is to develop and implement community response plans. And here communities explore and prioritize their issues. They would develop community response plans based on their issues. They would share plans with the broader community, and then they would carry out these plans together. And this would be community partners with support from mobilizing officials. And this is a very heavy and a lot more steps, and this would require a lot of more meetings and interactions with the communities for them to explore the issues themselves and to better understand the issues. And this would also require more meetings and discussions amongst the community partners with community members with community leaders. So this would be various different discussions. And we have some samples here. We have a sample planning matrix or a sample response plan, which is not too dissimilar from something you might have seen with any other plans, which has the objectives, strategies, activities, responsibilities, and resources, timeline, and indicators of success. And again, this is the communities themselves that will be developing this plan. They would be carrying out the activities within this plan. And just to note that the mobilizing officials would provide support with helping to implement the activities within their plans. And here we just have some sample activities that could be included in community response plans. And the last step would be to ensure regular community feedback and monitoring. And so here we have 6.1, we have to identify and respond to concerns, rumors, and misinformation. This information is important to gather regularly because it will also help to feed back to your community response plans and any changes that communities might have to make or adaptations to these plans to ensure that they're really addressing the broader needs of the community. And then also to share data back with communities. So the information that's collected from the community action plans, response plans, is done by communities. And then the communities are actually monitoring the data that's happening with implementation of these plans, and they're sharing it back to the broader community. And we have some tools here. We have some sample indicators. We have a sample community bulletin board. And this normally would be placed in an area within the community of high traffic. But because we don't want to encourage that, we would consider sharing information from this community bulletin board on telephone or video or radio. Okay, so that sums up how to engage communities. To get more detailed information, you can please check out the Ready Initiative website, the RCCE Toolkit, and check out this tool to get more information. But just to leave you with this question, how are you carrying out community engagement? Are you carrying out similar to the steps that I just presented? Are you using different steps? Are you using a combination of your steps with these steps? And what tool are you using? Do you think that some of the tools that we presented today could be useful for you? Let us know. Please feel free to reach out and all resources, and I'll just go ahead and share my email address again. Never mind. Please feel free to reach out, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you. Thanks a lot.